You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome back to Cards to the Moon. My name is Clark from 5 Card Guys on Instagram and 5cardguys.com. With me, co-hosting as usual, is Hyung of Integrity Sports Cards. John is off this week, but joining us for this Friday episode 123, is our friend Chris Begg, who recently coached the Canadian Junior National Baseball team with Hyung late last year. And Chris also has plenty of experience as a pitcher himself, notably competing in the 2004 and 2008 Summer Olympics for Team Canada, as well as the 2006 and 2009 World Baseball Classic. Chris, great to have you join us today.
Yeah, thanks. I'm excited. Get to talk about cards and baseball. What could be better?
Nothing can be better than that. Well, I know the World Baseball Classic just ended, but Chris, just curious, what did you think about the tournament this year, and how has it changed since you competed almost 20 years ago now?
Yeah, I think I guess I have a unique perspective, especially being in the very first one, and it was brand new. Nobody knew what to expect. Nobody knew the draw that it would have and fans. And, in the end of it, I think it was pretty successful. But when we fast forward to this year, I mean, I think it was undoubtedly the most exciting one that we've seen so far. It was incredible. I mean, I will never watch pick to an Italy and whoever game over in Taiwan at 7 a.m, but I'm sitting there locked in to these games. Like it was insane, right? You start learning all these players and watching all these players and seeing some of the talent. You're like, you look at the rosters beforehand and they're a bunch of, so to speak, no neighbors, nobody we've ever heard of over here. And then all of a sudden you watch me like, these guys are all throwing like 94 miles an hour on the bump. And like, why are these guys not playing in the States? And so it was pretty incredible watching. I was locked in. It was so exciting. I thought it was great.
Yeah, we loved it. We talked about it in a previous podcast as well, how exciting it was. Is it like hockey, where the rest of the world catches up eventually? Over that time, do you see like different countries getting better progressively over the years?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have, and I think we hope that it does continue in that trend. I mean, one of the reasons that, years ago, gets taken out of the Olympics every now and then, the argument was that it's not a global game. And I don't think you can argue that anymore. It's worldwide. It's in Europe and Africa and Oceania and, obviously Asia, North America, South America. So, I mean, I don't think that argument has a leg to stand on anymore. So, I hope it's going to be in the Olympics for years to come and not come out. And WBC creates the draw and interest that it did this year. And, social media was blowing up the whole tournament. I mean, that was all it was. So, I think it's incredible. And I think it just did such a great thing for the sport as a whole.
Yeah, totally agree. And really appreciate your insight there. I should also mention you're also a big card collector as well. So before we start this episode, do you want to share what you told us before about working at a card shop back in the day?
Yeah, way back in the day. So it's funny. The one thing I didn't tell you about, like how I first got into it, though, I don't know if you guys remember the old Olco gas stations.
Oh, yeah.
And Olco used to hand out stacks of 1988 Topps cards. And I remember, driving by and I just asked my dad to fill up gas all the time. Right? I just wanted the cards. So I got stacks of these 1988 Topps cards, not knowing anything, but looking at the back of it and memorizing all the stats. I remember like one of them, I think it was either an 88 or an 89 card, Bob Dernier, if you throw the French accent on it.
Yeah.
I mean, I looked at it, the guy hit 750 one year. I thought that was incredible, but he only had 4 bats, right? So it's like, this guy's a Hall of Famer. So, that's kind of what got me into it. But then, it wasn't too much after that my brother and I opened up a card store, and I was in the basement. My mom had a retail store of gift baskets, and in the basement of the store, we opened up a card shop. And it was called the Card Seller, CEL, not SEL. And so that's what we did. And we, it was in the peak of the junk wax and everything when there were, 45 million of every card printed off and everything was over. But it was the best, it was amazing. And, I'd remember I'd be running the shop by myself. I would have been 10, 11, 12 years old running that store by myself. My mom's upstairs, but I'm running it by myself and, selling cards and everything. And my brother would pay me. He's 4 years older than I am. He'd pay me in product. So I was like, this is, I get the wholesale prices. I'm going to spend my money on cards anyway. So I might as well just take packs of 92 Upper Deck all day long. So this is great, right? So that was, that was kind of my story getting into it. And it was just such a great hobby back in the day, right? As a kid, that's what you did.
Yeah. I love that story. Amazing story. All right, you're the perfect guest host to have on. That's the reason why we wanted you on, in addition to all your other accomplishments. All right, so for today's episode, we'll be talking mostly baseball and baseball cards, just because it is opening day. The day we're recording is opening day, the best day of the year, right? And the big thing that everyone seems to be talking about in baseball, of course, is how will all the rule changes affect the game this year. If you don't know what we're talking about, you're probably not a big baseball fan, but all these rule changes are to hopefully entice new fans to the game. All right. So just quickly, the three big ones are, of course, the pitch clock, where pitchers will now have 15 to 20 seconds to throw a pitch, which will or should definitely speed up the game. 2, the bases themselves are bigger, which the league hopes to encourage more teams to steal bases. And 3, there's a ban on shifts, which means none of the 4 infielders can play shallow outfield, and 2 infielders have to be on either side of second base when the pitch is delivered, which will prevent easy outs for, pure pull hitting batters. So all that said, do you guys think this will actually help get more people interested in watching professional baseball? And in turn, from a hobby perspective, do you think that will translate into more interest in baseball cards? What do you think, Hyung?
I think, will that get back into Olympic sport? The speed of the game, that's what they wanted, right? And, overall, I think it's good for the game. I was a purist before, me and Beggar go way back. It's all about old school baseball. That's what we love, right? So yeah, we're all about speeding up the game now. It entertains, the fans a lot more. And coming from a baseball purist, I think it's just, at first, it was more of a, I'm not so sure, but I think overall they're marketing to a bigger audience, and, it's going to definitely help, I think, in general in the baseball scene. So I'm all for it. Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Chris?
I think I'm more of a purist than Hyung here. So I actually overall, I hate it. So the big one is the pitch clock. I hate the pitch clock. I actually don't mind the bases if it's promoting running, because I think that's really exciting. The running aspect, and it's 4 seconds of anxious entertainment, action. So I actually like that if it's going to promote stealing. The shift I don't mind either, just to get back a little bit to how the game is supposed to be played, and not the data analysis and everything about where guys trend and everything. It just, I think we'll see more athletic plays, more highlight reel plays and everything like that. But so I don't mind that one. But the pitch clock, I hate the pitch clock. If the whole intent is to speed up the game to get more viewers, I think we're catering to a casual viewer who, you're not going to get somebody excited about a 2.5 hour game if they're not excited about a 3-hour game. It's not going to do the trick. So I don't like it. I don't like the pitch clock, but I guess it's to be seen in the future. The results of it and everything. But no, I'd get rid of that one if that were me. The other ones I'm good with.
Okay. And I think adaptation, as these new ideas come, we're always we don't like it at first, and then as it develops, you realize, what, it does trim up the time. That's why I say normally I'm on the side with Beggar. I'm all about, keep the game the way it is, even the robot umps. But then, because as a baseball purist, you're always like, that's what baseball's all about. The umpires are part of the game. Like all this is part of the game. But, I think that's the evolution of baseball. 5 years down the road, we're going to look back and we're going to be like, man, it was so slow paced, right? If you think about it, and it totally changes strategies now of the game. So I think, right now with all this going on, I would have normally said, dump it all. But the way everything is going in terms of even like you watched the World Baseball Classic, going back to how crazy that was as a fan, and we only have that access because we have the internet now. You know what I mean? So it's like we didn't have this access before where, we could literally watch every single game, and stream the whole, WBC. So for me, it's all about growing the game. And I think in this digital world, our attention span's obviously a lot slower than, what they were in the past. And we want more thrill in the sport. So I'm still both ways. When I coach, it's gonna be old school. But as a fan, I'm not disliking it. I think that's part of the reason. Like we said, what if this is the segue into back to Olympic sport? If that's kind of like the deciding factor, we'll say.
Sure.
Yeah, that would be great. I'm waiting to see how creative some of these pitchers and players get to manipulate the pitch clock and everything. Saw one today, actually. We had the Yankees game on, and Garrett Cole was throwing, and he was going to get called for a violation, so he just called the catcher out. Called the catcher out. Counts as a visit for the catcher, but he doesn't get charged with throwing a ball, right? So just something like that a little bit. And they're going to be things. I've thought of a couple
sure
that I haven't seen happen yet, and
there was the Acuna stealing too. Do you guys see that?
No.
So basically, lefty pitcher on the mound, he picks off twice, and then now he has to deliver a pitch. So Acuna is out there, huge lead. He steals the bag so easy. This guy might steal 60 bags.
Yeah, I mean, you can pick over a third time, right? But if you don't,
you got to get him out.
If you don't, then it's a balk and he gets the base.
Right.
So that's why, I don't necessarily hate that, just because it does promote running. And I think that is such an exciting part of the game. I'd love to see, back in the 80s when you see guys with whatever, 50, 60, 70, 80 stolen bases. Ricky Henderson's an anomaly, but, those big numbers, that's exciting. That's exciting for fans. If you don't give me the pitch clock, give me running, give me speed. That's exciting.
No, well, you know what? I guess from a fan perspective, I haven't played at the pro level like you guys, so this is purely from a fan perspective. I love all the changes. Sorry, Chris, I love the pitch clock. I love it. I love it. But you know what? I'll say this: as a baseball viewer, at home watching it, I love it, right? But when I'm at the stadium, I'm going to feel rushed. I usually love going to the concession stands, taking my time, enjoying the atmosphere. Now I'm going to miss 3 innings if I take too long. You know what I mean?
Well, that's a whole different aspect, is the concessions. I thought this is probably going off the deep end a little bit here, but I mean, I don't know how the concessions all work with who makes the revenue, whether if it's the stadium, the team, or if it's outsourced. Right. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say they don't make as much money in 2.5 hours as they do in 3 hours. And they're not going to end up, footing the bill for that and losing revenue. So they're just going to end up charging more for their hot dogs and beer or whatever it is. And that's going to come back on the fans. So now the fans are paying more for that same product that is shorter. So
that's a good point. Well,
that's something I thought about, how it's going to steamroll a little bit. And now, I mean, going to a game or whatever is already so expensive. You could be $500 for a family of 4. And now it's just going to be a little bit more. So, all those things are going to add up a little bit, I think.
Or while you're talking, it might be like football, they have the tailgating parties before the game, if it's 2.5 hours, you got 1 hour of just partying before the game, and you got more people coming to the game. If this is, if this works the way it's supposed to, getting more fans and more viewers to come to the ballpark, it's going to be great.
So I was a casual football fan, and I've gone to 2 Bills games in my life when I was in college.
Okay.
And we tailgated at 7 a.m. We were the first ones in the parking lot, did that twice. I became a fan. That got me.
Yeah, right.
That got me into it. It wasn't shortening the game; it was actually lengthening the whole entertainment day, right? So that was fun.
So I'm saying I don't know if you could do that for 80 home games for baseball. At least football, it's a very short season, but anything can happen. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see how things play out. I guess from a hobby perspective, I know we're talking a lot baseball, but like if you have more people watching, obviously that's a good thing for the hobby. Generally, you're hoping that some percentage of that audience will convert to becoming card collectors. But also, I think you were talking about it, Chris, about like the running game, like having more excitement in the game that's not just about hitting home runs. I think that could translate into the hobby in that we're not just collecting home run hitters. Right now it's just like if you don't hit home runs, the card's gonna have a cap in terms of value. Like Aaron Judge obviously blew up last year, but like, you don't see like 30 stolen bases is not that exciting, right? But 50 or 60 stolen bases, like, oh, okay, now we're talking. That like Corbin Carroll, if he does that.
That was the guy that came to my mind right there.
Yeah, his rookie card, like it's going to pump his value a lot more than in another regular season where it's the same old rules and it's capped at 20, 30 stolen bases, right?
I was thinking the same thing where, the running game might play a bigger factor in kind of like value of players. At first it was like, well, batting average, home runs, all that is what you look for. But then it definitely will hit the scale on the WAR level, stealing more bags, being more active on the base paths, like doing more damage that way. And I think that's what they're trying to do in general. So I was thinking about that. It would the value of, someone who steals more go up because the WAR value, and then would home run hitters in the past have more value because maybe, the game changes where it's not as much, long ball, because if people are just trying to win, they're going to realize that like speed does a lot, the pace of the game, the speed of the game, having fast runners. So yeah, it'll be definitely interesting to see kind of like how this changes the game, and it will change the game. I have a feeling it's definitely gonna speed up the game, which I think it's gonna be a lot more entertaining for the fans.
I'll tell you as a player, I never minded pitching against the big power hitters. That's not what bothered me. I hated those dynamic little players that would just fly on the base paths. The two guys that I remember the most were Michael Bourne, who I know him, you know him very, very well, and Joey Gathright. Those two guys, I hated pitching against them just because of speed. It had nothing to do with power. It was just pure speed. I did not want them on the base paths, right? So you're working almost extra hard, so to speak, when they're hitting to avoid getting them on first base because they're looking to go. And I think if we can get guys like that back in the game and showing that caliber of that part of the game and the speed aspect of it, and just stealing and running and, going first to third or second, whatever it is, then that's exciting for fans.
Yeah, for sure. One more thing before we go on to our next discussion. The ban on shifts. Like at first, I didn't like the ban because I'm a huge stats geek. I love playing with stats. I'm like, yeah, if Freddie Freeman hits to the right side 90% of the time, why not? Why not throw your third baseman to the shallow right? But I think thinking about it a little bit more, the ban on shifts, I'm hoping that you're going to see some like really good defensive plays. Like this is going to step up the defensive side of things. And I think that could also be, part of the highlight reel on a daily basis. You know what I mean? And that might increase the excitement of the game. Like rather than getting Freddie Freeman, I'm just using it. He's just in my mind. I'm just picking on him, but rather than like getting him ground out from a shallow right to first base, you know what I mean? Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see how that works out.
When was the shift implemented? Like, or when did teams? It's when Moneyball kind of came out and the whole analytical world was kind of the forefront. I would say like mid 2000s maybe. That's when teams really started.
I feel like it was even later than that.
It's wild.
Maybe
like
I'm wrong, but
when like you see it, because we coached the junior national team together. So we play, minor league teams sometimes down in like spring training and stuff. And, they practice the shift and I'm just sitting up there. It's like, man, like you bunt, like it's just like it's there. That's a base hit.
But to that, that's the point, right? Like, how exciting would that be?
I know, but that's what I'm saying. It's like it's a battle of playing the game and capitalism, kind of. You know what I mean?
But hits are good. I mean, if you're talking about it for the fan experience, unless you're a baseball purist, I'm good with a good old 1-0 pitcher's duel, but most fans aren't, right? They want to see runs, and if you ban the shift, now you add more hits fall in or get through holes. Now you're adding more runs, so that's a way of increasing that excitement, fan experience, and everything without doing things like the pitch clock, which I hate.
We'll agree to disagree there.
Yeah.
All right. Good talk. Now, for our other discussion we had planned to talk about today is the big news from Fanatics in partnership with Major League Baseball. And that's all rookies playing in their first MLB game. I saw Jordan Walker actually wear one today when they played against the Jays. On their uniform, they have a special patch on the arm that says MLB Debut. Then that patch will be taken off and inserted into a baseball card as a 1-of-1, which can be found in a pack by one lucky collector. You guys excited about that as much as I am?
Of course. I love it. We talked about this on a previous podcast, where, this is exactly Fanatics alley. I find absolutely nothing wrong with this, and I want to see more of it where, let's just say, somebody hits home run number 500. It's like you could use memorabilia from that day and, be able to implement it in chases throughout cards where it's not rookie chasing only. This is like this. It's almost like what they're trying to do with Topps now, make a set that it's like, wow, remember this moment, we created a card. This is like on steroids, right? Like Fanatics is, basically, the capability that they have with all this memorabilia now to put in the chase, as a sports card collector, I'm way more excited about that because, that changes the user experience big time. And, we all love the hobby. We all love ripping. And if it becomes a lot more, I guess, worth it to rip, the ROI becomes worth it. I think it will bring people, back into kind of like that space.
I'm just excited because Hyung's going to be ripping all these packs, and I'm going to pick up all the scraps that he doesn't want. I actually was watching. I saw that same thing. Jordan Walker, he got his first hit, and the first thing I kind of looked for, because I knew about this, right, was that patch. And I was like, wow, like that's going to be,
it's like the logo,
huge. Man. It's going to be huge, right? This can be massive. You're going to, I think you're going to see, a lot of money being thrown around for these patches. I'm hoping they don't look like a manufactured patch, because those ones, I don't like the manufactured patch, so those are kind of cheesy to me, but these ones will look really good. But then I started questioning, when are we going to see some like cross promotions or whatever with branding and other companies? Like I was thinking like the Padres, they've got the Motorola patches on their jerseys, right? So when are we going to see like Fanatics Topps or whatever Motorola card, out there and see like 1-of-1's Motorola or whatever? It's like, and it wouldn't surprise me if we see that sooner rather than later, because if there's money to be made, somebody's going to dive in with it.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I'm with you guys. I'm pretty excited about it. Like, you're saying, Chris, like, I don't know how much those are going to go for once they're actually in packs. Like, imagine an Anthony Volpe or Jackson Chourio 1-of-1 MLB patch. That's thousands, right?
It's going to be. Yeah. I'll tell you what, it's not going to be in my eBay search. That's you guys.
It's just fun to look.
Absolutely, 100%.
Do you guys expect to see anything like this in other sports? Like basketball could easily do this.
I think you need to. I think it becomes a standard of that user experience that we talked about. You can't, I think it works well in baseball, but other sports make sense. Like I don't know about tennis though. We're going to have to be creative there, but it's like, part of his polo or,
you'll get the little like Ralph Lauren polo symbol or whatever in a card or something.
No, you could add a patch anywhere on his shirt.
Yeah.
But going back to basketball, can you imagine like a Victor Wembanyama NBA debut patch?
Sure. Yeah, that'd be sick.
That's at least 5 figures there, right? So
Well, NBA does better than any sport, I think, of marketing its players and everything, right? So, they probably
and
have
the way
most
they branded
opportunity.
the logo man, the way they branded the logo man, that would be a huge chase more than I think the MLB debut, because I think the rich history, and now that Fanatics has kind of like that Topps Chrome basketball, right? Or whatever, however they're gonna do it, I don't know. But having that true one of one logo man, I think would be massive.
Yeah, agreed. Well, opening day, I think some of the games already ended when we started recording this, and if you're a Jays fan like we all are, that was a wild game. That went back and forth. Yeah, it's a good start.
St. Louis is
3.5
really good.
hours of beautiful baseball.
I was gonna say. I'm like, I thought this was to speed up the game, but I guess when the score's 10-9 with 30 plus combined hits,
Perfect.
You can't complain. But anyway, that's our Friday episode. Thanks again for all our listeners and subscribers tuning in. We'll have a regular full-length episode on Tuesday. Chris, thanks again for joining us. And actually, you'll be back for our Tuesday episode. So, for people that liked what Chris brought to the show, well, you're in for a treat on Tuesday. We'll see you then. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.